Pathfinder Force was formed because the results of the night bombing just were not particularly great. And so it was decided to form a Pathfinder Force that would seek out the target, identify the target, and identify the aiming point. And so an Australian, DCT Bennett, who at the time was a group captain, had been shot down over Norway, had got back to England, and prior to being in the Air Force, had been with Imperial Airways and was recognised as the most skilled navigator. And so they chose Don Bennett, who was from Toowoomba in Queensland, with the RAF, to set up the Pathfinder Force. And that was to take from the main force squadrons, from the Bomber Command squadrons, skilled pilots, skilled crews, try to get them as a crew, skilled crews, and form them into this elite force, which was called Pathfinder Force, with Don Bennett as the AOC. And they promoted him to Air Commodore. And there were five, as I recall, there were 5 squadrons. There was the Wellington Squadron 156, to which I was posted. There was 35 Squadron at Gravely. There was 109 Squadron, which was a Mosquito Squadron, and I can't remember what the other 2 were. They're probably Lancasters and so on. So I was, and the first thing they did was to form a recruiting force. And that recruiting force was headed by a Wing Commander, Hamish Mahadi. And Mahadi's job was to go round the Bomber Command squadrons and pick out those crews which he would like to have transferred to Pathfinder Force. And this he did. And when he came to 460 Squadron, he asked me whether I would be willing to transfer to Pathfinder Force with my crew. So he told us what it involved, which it involved doing an extended tour of 45 operations before being screened. Screened was when you'd finished your tour, you were placed with, given another job. It might be as an instructor, it might be at headquarters, it might be anything, transport, anything. So that was quite a challenge to, we were 26, we only had four operations to go before being screened. Would we take the risk and go on to Pathfinder Force? So at this point, I think I had just been commissioned. I can't remember whether I'd just been commissioned. Yeah, I think I had just been commissioned, and was a pilot officer, and I'd received a DFM, a non-immediate award of the Distinguished Flying Medal, after I'd done 22 trips, and I was, as I said, at 26. So I talked it over with the crew. Some of the crew had not been with me for the full period, and Bob Nielsen had been off on a course, so he was about 3 or 4 trips behind. I think Bill Copley had been with me most of the time. And anyway, we talked it over, and we thought, well, if we went on to 45, we probably wouldn't need to do any more. And Hamish said, you know, you get accelerated promotion, you know, and if you finish your tour, you'll if you do a certain number of trips, you'll get your Pathfinder badge, which was the only group formation in the Royal Air Force that had a distinguishing badge. The fighter pilots used to leave their top button undone, but that was unofficial. But Pathfinder Force, you got a temporary award of your Pathfinder badge after you'd done 3 or 4 or 5 trips or something, and you wore that, but you didn't get a permanent award until you'd finished a tour of 45. We thought, oh, but anyway, we thought it over, and it sounded like a challenge, and all my crew, with the exception of the rear gunner, Johnny Swain, decided they were happy to come to Pathfinder Force with us. By that time, though, Eddie Wurtzler, our bomb aimer front gunner, had been wounded, and he was taken off operational flying, and Alan Ritchie had joined us as the bomb aimer, front gunner. Johnny Swain was engaged to be married to a girl in Australia, and he decided that as he was sort of so close to finishing his tour and being screened, and he'd been with me the whole time, so he was presumably up to his 26th. It's either 26th, that he wouldn't come. He would do his 4 trips and get screened. And that was a decision we respected. But the tragedy was that Johnny Swain got killed on his first trip with the new crew. And that was a sadness for us. And it's just the luck of the draw.